In the ruins of Stalingrad, in the autumn and winter of 1942, the deadliest battle of the deadliest war in human history ground through its terrible course. The city on the Volga had become the fulcrum on which the Eastern Front turned, a place where two vast armies fed men and material into a furnace of urban combat that reduced one of the Soviet Union's great industrial centers to a landscape of rubble, basements, and shattered walls. It was in this landscape that a particular form of warfare reached its zenith, a form that was as old as the rifle itself, but that took on a new and terrible significance amid the wreckage: sniper warfare. And it was from this crucible that one of the most enduring legends of the Second World War emerged, the story of a duel between two master snipers, one Soviet and one German, that has been told and retold until the line between history and myth has become almost impossible to discern. The Soviet sniper at the center of this legend was Vasily Zaitsev, a shepherd's son from the Ural Mountains who had grown up hunting in the forests and had learned to shoot with a patience and precision that would make him one of the most famous soldiers of the war. Zaitsev arrived in Stalingrad in September 1942 as a petty officer in the Soviet Navy, transferred to the army as reinforcements were desperately funneled across the Volga to hold the city. He quickly distinguished himself as a marksman of exceptional ability, and his growing tally of confirmed kills brought him to the attention of Soviet propagandists who were desperate for heroes to inspire a battered and demoralized population. The Soviet propaganda machine understood the power of the individual story in a war that was being fought on a scale that defied individual comprehension. The Eastern Front consumed entire armies. Battles involved millions of soldiers, and casualties were counted in the hundreds of thousands. In such a context, the story of a single man, a man with a name and a face and a personal history, who was making a difference through his own skill and courage, was invaluable. Zaitsev was perfect for the role. He was young, photogenic, of humble origin, and he killed Germans. The propaganda department of the Soviet 62nd Army, which was responsible for the defense of Stalingrad, promoted him aggressively, publishing his exploits in army newspapers and holding him up as an example of the Soviet fighting spirit. It was against this backdrop that the legend of the duel emerged. According to the story, the German military command, alarmed by the toll that Zaitsev and other Soviet snipers were taking on their forces, dispatched a master sniper to Stalingrad with the specific mission of hunting down and killing Zaitsev. This German marksman is most commonly identified as Major Erwin Koenig, though variations of the story give different names and different ranks. He was said to be the head of the German sniper school at Zossen, near Berlin, a man of extraordinary skill who had been sent to Stalingrad as a counter-sniper specialist. The duel, as traditionally told, lasted several days. Zaitsev and his spotter identified the general area from which the German sniper was operating, and a deadly game of patience and deduction began. Both men were masters of concealment and fieldcraft. Both understood that the first to reveal his position would be the last to fire. The rubble of Stalingrad provided an infinite number of potential hiding places, and the challenge was not merely to shoot accurately but to identify, among thousands of shattered windows, collapsed walls, and piles of debris, the one tiny space from which the enemy was watching. According to Zaitsev's own account, the duel reached its climax when he identified the German's position, concealed beneath a sheet of iron between two ruined buildings. Zaitsev waited until the sun was behind him, creating a glare that would make it difficult for the German to see, and then used a decoy, a raised helmet or a dummy, to provoke a shot. The German fired, revealing his exact position. Zaitsev fired once and the duel was over. It is a magnificent story. It has all the elements of great drama: two skilled adversaries, a lethal setting, patience, cunning, and a decisive moment of truth. It was adapted into a major film and has been retold in countless books and documentaries. And it may not be true. Or rather, parts of it may be true, parts may be embellished. And one crucial element, the identity of the German sniper, may be entirely fictional. The problems with the story begin with the German. No German military records have been found that confirm the existence of a Major Erwin Koenig, or of any other senior sniper officer dispatched to Stalingrad, specifically to counter Zaitsev. The German sniper school at Zossen is documented. But its commandant during this period does not match the descriptions given in Soviet accounts. The German army did employ snipers extensively on the Eastern Front, and it is entirely possible that a skilled German marksman was operating in the same sector as Zaitsev. But the specific narrative of a deliberate high-level mission to hunt one Soviet sniper has no corroboration in German sources. This absence of evidence does not prove that the duel did not happen. German military records from the Stalingrad period are incomplete. Many were destroyed during the battle itself, during the subsequent Soviet capture of the German Sixth Army, or in the general destruction of the war's final years. It is possible that a German sniper of considerable skill was sent to Stalingrad and was killed by Zaitsev, and that the records of his mission were simply lost. Absence of evidence is not, as the historian's cliché reminds us, evidence of absence. But the circumstances in which the story emerged and was promoted give considerable reason for skepticism. Soviet wartime propaganda was not known for its restraint or its fidelity to verifiable fact. The political commissars who managed the flow of information from the front had a clear mandate to produce stories that boosted morale, and the dual narrative served that purpose perfectly. A lone Soviet hero defeating the best the Germans could send against him was propaganda gold, and the temptation to embellish or even fabricate such a story would have been considerable. Zaitsev himself told the story in his memoirs and maintained its truth throughout his life. He was by all accounts a genuinely skilled and effective sniper whose contributions to the defense of Stalingrad were real. His confirmed kill count of 225, while subject to the usual uncertainties of such tallies, is supported by multiple sources and is not seriously disputed. He trained dozens of other snipers, creating a cadre of marksmen who collectively had a significant impact on the battle. He was wounded, nearly blinded by a mortar blast, and returned to combat after recovering his sight. His service record is impressive by any standard, and it does not need the embellishment of a Hollywood-style duel to be remarkable. The broader context of sniper warfare at Stalingrad is itself one of the most significant aspects of the battle. Both sides employed snipers extensively in the urban fighting, and the Soviet forces in particular made sniper operations a central element of their defensive strategy. The ruined cityscape was ideal terrain for snipers, offering unlimited concealment and sight lines that could be measured in hundreds of yards. Soviet snipers operated in pairs, changing positions frequently and targeting officers, North Carolina OS, and other high-value personnel, whose loss disrupted the functioning of German units. The psychological impact of sustained sniper activity was profound. German soldiers in Stalingrad reported a constant, wearing fear of being watched, of being targeted by an unseen enemy who could strike at any moment from any direction. This fear was a weapon in itself, degrading morale and forcing German units to move cautiously and take precautions that slowed their operations. Whether the duel between Zaitsev and the German master sniper happened as described, or whether it was a creation of Soviet propaganda built around a kernel of truth, or whether it was entirely fictional, is a question that may never be definitively answered. What is certain is that the story has taken on a life of its own, becoming one of the defining narratives of the Battle of Stalingrad, and more broadly, of the sniper's role in modern warfare. It speaks to something deep in the human imagination. The contest between two individuals in the midst of mass destruction, the reduction of a war of millions to a duel of two, in a battle that was defined by its impersonal brutality, by the sheer volume of suffering and death. The story of two men hunting each other through the rubble offers a narrative frame that is comprehensible, personal, and dramatic in a way that the larger battle is not. Zaitsev survived the war and lived until 1991, dying just weeks before the dissolution of the Soviet Union that he had fought to defend. He was buried in Volgograd, the city that had once been Stalingrad, with full military honors. His rifle is preserved in a museum. His story, in all its disputed detail, remains part of the fabric of the battle, inseparable from the rubble and the cold and the relentless, unforgiving combat that made Stalingrad a word that still carries, more than 80 years later, the weight of the worst that human beings can do to each other.